Yes? No, we can't. I don't think we can. I don't think this one is working. Hello? 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 Share a mic? Because it seems that this is not.
1, 2, 1, 2.
Okay, so I now have the pleasure to be welcoming Paolo Woods and Arnaud Robert, who are going to be discussing their latest book, Happy Pills. Just to introduce you both briefly, Paolo Woods is a documentary photographer, and I hope I get this right, who is Dutch-Canadian, raised in Italy, but now lives in the Ivory Coast. Okay, and who is known for his investigative work, and particularly a recent project, The Heavens, that was showed in Arles, investigating tax havens. And there has some, I think, interesting parallels with the Happy Pills project that maybe we can touch on. And Arnaud Robert is a Swiss journalist, writer, and documentary filmmaker. And together, they produced this Happy Pills project because the project actually has several forms, including a film that will be released in the future. But we're here today to talk about the book, Happy Pills, published by Delpire in French. But our conversation we'll be having in English, which, as you probably can kind of guess from the title, explores the world of pharmaceutical drugs and the relationship that we all really have with these drugs today. So I was really curious just when I first heard the title of the book about how you would treat this subject visually. I mean, much like tax havens, I would say that the idea of doing a visual project about pills is an almost kind of impossible visual task. You know, whenever you see an article in the press about anything relating to pharmaceuticals, it's illustrated with a picture of a pile of pills on a table. So when you came up with this idea of this topic, this theme, how did you start to think about the kind of visual aspect of this, how you might go and explore the world of pills in a visual way?
Well, I would say, first of all, thank you for the question, because that's something which is really central in my work. I am obsessed with photographing non-photogenic stories. And that's something that, since projects like the Chinese in Africa, it's always been a leitmotif in my work, and something that really interests me. I think that photography has to challenge itself in entering arenas where it's not normally at home. So it's sure, with tax havens and with this project, there's been a lot of thinking and debating and exploring the means of photography. And in this particular project with Arnaud, there's really been a lot of ping pong between the two of us about how we're gonna tackle this project from a photographic point, from a visual point of view. And very quickly it was also clear to us that it's not a project on pills per se. It's a project on us as consumers. So we tell the stories of 8 different consumers through the world. One consumer, one pill, one place every time. And for each story we approach it in a different visual way. And that's really had to do with a lot of reading, research. I think research is at the very core of how you're going to photograph. You just don't, be parachuted in the middle of Niger or Peru or Israel, wherever the places we went to, and just start clicking away. There's a lot of research before.
And I mean, obviously, with the title Happy Pills, one might think immediately about antidepressants as the kind of most literal form of these drugs. But as you go through the book, there are some less maybe obvious types of medication that you bring up. And if as soon as you start thinking about it, you realize that maybe almost the entire pharmaceutical industry is kind of based upon this notion that a pill, whatever it is, can provide you with happiness of some kind. So how did you go about narrowing it down to a certain number of drugs?
Yeah, that's exactly that. It's really a project about the promises of the pharmaceutical industry, but also our common aspiration. How, as human beings, we depend on external solution for eternal problems, and it really started with a sort of casting of pills. We were looking for medication that were not interesting because they would heal some disease, but they would really treat more like weaknesses, like an aspiration to be bigger, stronger, to have lasting erections. And we really started with this casting of, I don't know, maybe a dozen of pills that said something about our own relationship with our body aging, with our anxieties, with our lust for success. And after that, we were looking for the real place where those pills would be more interesting to explore. And I give an example for that. We knew we wanted to work on PrEP, which is a prophylactic pill against HIV infection. We knew that we would work in the gay community. The first maybe instinct would be to go to the US, maybe in San Francisco, but we knew also that Tel Aviv is one of the very recent but important crossroad for the gay community. The gay pride is really more and more important for the gay community around the world, but also Israel produces those pills as a generic pill, and they reimburse, that's the word? They reimburse those pills. So it started with the casting of the pill and the casting of the place to the casting of the people we would meet.
Right, and I mean one of the things about the book that is so striking are these people, and I would like to ask you to maybe to speak about two of them in particular. And you also have to tell me if these are actually their names, because they're almost too good to be true. So there is an Italian gigolo by the name of Roy Dolce. I presume this is not his real name, but he's chosen a very good one in any case. But also, maybe as a kind of counterpoint to that, there is an American teenager who is diagnosed with ADHD, and her name is Addie, unbelievably. So maybe you could speak about those two kind of characters as examples of the different characters that there are in the book.
Well, yes, it's important to say that these are all real characters. They're all real people that exist in real life. Roy Dolce, which you will see some photographs going through, is an Italian gigolo, and we didn't control his documents, so I'm not sure that's his real name, but I think his surname is really Dolce. I think Roy is a contraction of a name, and he very clearly admits to using regularly erectile drugs, so Viagra, Chalice, whatever, to have a lasting erection and do his job. So he takes a pill that works very well for him. And he's the incarnation for us of the extreme idea of a mechanical réussite, comment on dit réussite? Yes, of a mechanical success. So you take the pill, it works. It doesn't make you desire grow, but it gives you an erection. And that's, for us, an extreme case of something which is instead much wider for all of us. You have to think that Viagra, a year, 4 billion pills are sold. So every single man on the planet could be consuming one pill. And it's one of the most successful drugs in the world. And the very vast majority of the people that consume Viagra do not consume it because they have erectile dysfunction. They consume it because they're scared. They want a mechanical success. They want to be sure that it's going to work. And it says a lot about our fears. It says a lot about how frail we are as humans. And maybe you can speak about Eddie.
Yeah, Adi that's her real name. That's a 15 years old girl who lives in Massachusetts, and we knew that we wanted to work on the ADHD pill, on the Ritalin or Adderall, because it's such an important phenomenon, not only in the U.S. but in the U.S. 10% of the kids are diagnosed with an ADHD trouble, and 3/4 of them are on amphetamines, on Adderall or Ritalin. So that's a massive prescription, and it questions the idea of normality. What is a normal kid when so many kids are under that chemical solution? And we met. It was a confrontation for us to a very normal kid and to a very normal American middle-class family. And so we were confronted almost to all the American cliches of the school. She is a pom-pom girl. She's a cheerleader. And the thing is, her mother, Adi's mother, was scared of Adi not having good grades and not being a successful kid. So she paid for neurological and psychological tests to get the diagnosis. And with the diagnosis, you get a better framing at school, you are helped, you have private lessons, you have better grades, mechanically, but also you have the drugs that comes along. And yeah, that's her, exactly with her mother. So it's definitely the ultimate pill for success. And we were, I just tell you one thing more, we were amazed by the little signs of something wrong, not only in the family, in this house, but in the society at large, because on the walls of the schools, you have all those injunctions, all those mottos written on the walls, where, for example, they show if you have better grades at school, you're going to earn $300,000 more by year when you're going to be graduated. So this injection for success is really all over the place. And I think the pill just helps that culture of having to be successful.
Yeah, it feeds into that culture, absolutely. I mean, as you could see from the images, the book is really a kind of equal balance between text, images, and also these chapter openers that kind of infographics that provide a lot of statistical data on the scale of all of these different drugs. Now, you know, Paolo being the photographer, we might think that it's a kind of easy, logical separation of tasks, as it were, in your collaboration. But I understand that that's not really the case. So, you know, over these 5 years that went into the project, can you talk a little bit about how you collaborated and how you worked together to produce all of this?
I just want to say something, that Paolo is obsessed with words. When we started to work together like almost 10 years ago in a post-earthquake Haiti. And that was the first time I was working with a photographer who was attending every single interview, who were asking questions, and who were reading a lot about the subjects we were working on. So yeah, it was really a shared, since the very first day we started to work together, it was really a shared work of thinking of this story in many medias. Images would be a part, photography is really a part of it, but of course that statistics, words, are really a part of the stories we want to tell. And we are building up together all the separate identities of the stories.
Yeah, and we don't identify as photographer and writer. We co-signed the entire project, which is a book, it's an exhibition which right now is in Switzerland, in Lausanne. It's a film which is coming out next year, and in all these different, and even it's articles in the press, and all these different ways the project exists, we are always co-signing it. And it's for me extremely interesting because I've worked with a lot of journalists, and there tends to be very much this very sharp separation. Some magazines even prefer you don't speak with the journalist. And for me, it's completely different because we are building a project. We're not making photographs or writing words. And the construction, the final object is really thought like that. So many photo books have, 10 pages of text at the starting, which nobody ever reads. You look who signed it. Oh, it's that famous curator that wrote an essay for him. Cool. But you very rarely read those pages. We wanted, and the way the book is structured, that you go from photos to captions to text to quotes, back to infographics, back to images. And even like in cases like this, that is the ground in a little village in the south of Niger, we were following this young man which takes tramadol. Tramadol is a very strong opiate. We all know about the OxyContin scandal in North America and the opioid crisis there. What a lot of people know less, that a very similar opioid crisis is taking place right now in West Africa. Very poor, the poorest people in the world that do very menial jobs, very hard physically jobs, take very strong opioids, which are flooded the local markets, because with the message which has been passed down is that fatigue is a disease, and as a disease, it has to be cured. And when I was photographing this young man, we were also filming him, but when I was photographing and I was looking at my photographs, I really was not happy. The photographs looked like the classic, a reportage of a white guy in Africa, and misérabiliste, you say in French, with this kind of condescending look, and I couldn't really find the right balance. And Arnaud, when this village, there's no electricity, there's no running water, it's extremely poor. Looks at the ground and says, I see he starts taking photos with his iPhone, and he's photographing all the empty blisters. And these empty blisters are like a contemporary archaeology. They tell you about pains that have existed. They've told you about obsessions, about habits. And he started photographing them in an obsessive way. And I thought, well, that's really what we have to use as images there. That's what really makes sense. And in the end, in the book, those are the images we put in, with a portrait of the young man.
So there's another extremely complex project that we could discuss at a lot more length, but we're running out of time. Maybe we have 1 minute for a question from the audience. Okay, if not, I have a question. I would really love you to finish. Maybe if you could talk about Louis. I think is a kind of really nice way to end. And Louis takes, I guess, he is the subject that you have in the book who takes the pill that delivers the ultimate happiness.
Which is death, obviously. So Louis was a French writer, intellectual, an extraordinary man who decides to go and die in Switzerland with assisted suicide. It's illegal in this country. You can be persecuted for it, for helping it, and it's legal in Switzerland. He decides to do this because he wants to have the choice, and he has a very severe cancer, and he takes the ultimate pill, the last pill, not to take any more pills. He had been advised by his doctors to do very strong treatments with chemotherapy and all that, and he decides he does not want to do that, and for that he takes pentobarbital, which is used in 2 cases. It's used for assisted suicide or on death row in countries that have death penalty. And for us it was, a lot of people told us, it's strange, how can you consider that a happy pill? But it really is maybe the most happy of all the pills, because it's really the pill that worked perfectly. It delivers what it promises in every single possible way. And Louis decides to take that pill. And we followed Louis in a whole road trip from Portugal, where he used to live, where he sold his house, sold his car, let go of the people working for him. And he drives all the way to Switzerland in his last trip with his wife. I have goosebumps just talking about it. It was an incredible, incredible trip for us, and an incredible lesson in your relationship with your body and your choices.
Terrific. Thank you both so much for your time. Paolo and Arnaud are actually going to be signing copies of the book now, I believe, on the. Are you not aware of this?
We can. Perfect. We're
Okay,
there.
well, they
We're
didn't
there.
know it, but I've just organized a book signing.
Perfect.
On the Del Pierre stand, SE12. And I know that Del Pierre is waiting for you there, so I'm sure they will be happy for that. And you'll be able to speak with them at a bit more length and get yourself a signed copy of the book. So thank you both very much.